Yeah, hello. Good evening. I'm really happy to be with you. My name is Reti Emmanuel Adeshida, and I'm happy that it's another moment of Realized Transformational Series online. And it's about how we can talk about the success stories and some of the challenges we have during this pandemic, COVID-19. And today we'll be talking about school reopening. We're looking at, are we ready for schools to resume? Are we ready to send our kids to school? So these are some of the things we're going to talk about today. And it's going to be a wonderful time because I just want to say this that when it comes to Realize Africa is about how we can empower our society, how we can build a safer and better and transformative society, if I'm allowed to use that word, so that we can make a better choice and also make a better society. So my name is Richard Ishida. Once again, I want to say you're welcome to this edition of our online series. And I want to say this one thing about Realize Africa is that we give you the open doors to discuss, to engage with us. So feel free, drop your comments in the comment box, and we're surely going to reveal everything, share it with our guests and our resource person. So I have one of our resource persons in the house. He's one of our brothers. He's one of when it comes to people that are also sending their own advice and counsel. They are also being very, very impactful when it comes to that. I have my brother Busayo Morakinyo. Busayo, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well. I'm well. Thanks for having me, boss. I'm well.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice to really engage you. And let me just give you a brief about Busayo. Busayo Oluwadamilare Morakio, that's is popularly known as BOM, has a great passion for nation building and social impact. He has a background in history and international relations, a master's degree in humanitarian and refugee studies. He's someone that is very passionate when it comes to community engagement, and that's what took him to lead the community engagement section at Connected Development, which is popularly known as CODE, an emerging social accountability project that seeks to improve service delivery from public servants. Busayo believes in civil obligation in a crux of civil rights and also daily encourage active citizens through his Pan-African engagement. Busayo, you're welcome.
Thanks. Thanks a great
Yeah.
deal. Thanks a great
Okay.
deal.
I'm really happy to have you on board. And for our followers and those who are watching live, I want to say this that we're going to have Mrs. Lola Akinbo. I know she's going to join us. I think she's trying to connect. So once she connects, okay, I'll be able to put her on. So, okay. Yes, we have her live. Hello. Hello.
Good evening.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
good. Yeah, okay, yes, I understand. I know you had to quickly rush out of the studio, and it's good to have broadcasters like you. So you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So Mrs. Omolola Akinbo is a broadcast journalist. She has experience over 15 years, and presently she's the head of presentation at Crest FM 87.7 FM, which is also one of the trending radio stations in Ondo State. Passion for teaching took her into consulting for schools all over the country, where she trains teachers and learners on diction and public speaking. She's passionate about news and education matters, reform in education sector, and a dedicated member of Concerned Parents and Educators Network (CPE), where education reform matters are pushed on the national and state scene. Mrs. Omola Kimbo, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Well, I know, because I know when it comes to diction, when it comes to eloquence, you are a boss. So I believe that we'll also learn a lot from that. We hope that we have another edition whereby you'll be able to also teach us more about speaking, because it's good also to improve our language skills, as grammar and every other thing. So I believe we'll be able to have that.
Yes, it is. And
Okay, okay, okay. So
well, we will have two bits of it.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so let me just give you some time to calm down. I will start with Busayo, then I'll be back with you. So, Busayo, let's just quickly start. It's very, very important we look at the SDGs because the Sustainable Development Goals is something that is very, very important and vital when it comes to development and education in our society. And looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, we have education under goal 4, which is very, very key, which has to do with improved planning and also addressing some of the challenges and barriers we have to education. Let me ask you, looking at the situation we have now, looking at the situation we have in Nigeria today, do you think that there's any possibility for us to achieve the SDGs in 2030? Looking at, okay, let's just look at, is there any, look, let's even leave the COVID-19 pandemic before we go into
Yeah.
that. So pre-COVID, do you think that anything really looks like, oh, we are going to achieve the SDGs?
Yeah. Thanks for having me once again, and
Okay.
glad to see Madam is on the call already. For the SDGs, go 2030. Unfortunately, I'm going to say it as it is. I'm not going to mince words as much as
Mm,
possible. We were supposed to get into the decade of action in 2020, looking at the next 10 years. That was supposed to, the SDG is supposed to elapse 2030.
yeah.
As at 2019, if you look at the 17 goals of the SDGs, Nigeria was nowhere to be found. And I say this with all sense of sincerity.
Mm,
We were nowhere to be found because the realities on ground at the time, especially when it comes to education, was quite crazy. At the time, we had 13.5 million out of school children, or
mm,
10.5 million out of school children, based on the data you choose to go with, out of school in Nigeria. Now you also realize that that's for basic education. Now looking at tertiary education, there's still nothing to write home about. Our education has not been able to work. It has not been able to fix major challenges we have in the system, connecting it with our developmental circle. Now, so when we were getting into the decade of action, which was supposed to start in 2020, I said to myself and my colleagues, I said, just like the MDGs, I'm not sure we're
mm,
going to do anything significant, even with the SDGs. Seeing that there was no collaboration, kind of, with between the government agencies, the
yeah.
private sector, and the guys in the civil society space, which these guys
Mm,
are supposed to be the drivers of what we call the SDGs. Now, so what we have are just little actions in various spaces and all. Now, you know that Connected Development last year won the SDG Global Award for the mobilization category, right?
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a great deal. When we won that award in Bonn, in Germany, we had to think to ourselves, how are we going to push the 10 years plan for 2030? Unfortunately, COVID-19 has happened to the world, and now nobody's thinking about a decade of action. We're thinking about surviving COVID. But before
Mm.
COVID-19, I think Nigeria wasn't anywhere close to meeting the demands or the goals of the SDGs.
Wow, wow. Okay, so thank you very much. I want to say this that looking at it, that means we have a lot of challenges. But looking at post, let me say COVID-19, because am I going to say post now because we are still in between. Looking at the educational plan, we have a lot of disruption. We have a lot of schools. So we had schools had to go, shut down. That was in March, and then we have already July. We don't even know when schools are going to resume. So, do you think there's any hope when it comes to achievement of the SDGs? Looking at the structure we have, then again, I know you have been working in the area of tracking because I believe I've seen you in the north, in the south, even in rural communities. You are trying to track what is happening when it comes to education, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to funding. So, looking at the situation of things on ground, do you think we have any hope at all, or we should probably still have something to probably be happy about? So, what's your take on this?
Yeah. Would obviously, my first course of study was history and international relations. So I
Yeah.
mean, I like going back into history because from our history we understand where we're coming from and probably project to where we're going to. Just like
Mm,
the MDGs, again, I repeat. Now, we paid lip service to it. In fact, the MDGs was enshrined in various budgets across states and federal government, right?
yeah.
And we couldn't do too much, in the MDGs. And you understand the story of the MDGs better because you are at the forefront of the MDGs,
Yeah. Yeah.
but looking at the SDGs that we didn't really have budgeted allocations to. Now it just spells to us that not so much could have been done, right? Not so much could have been done. Now looking at the culture of the Nigerian state and how we do
mm,
not learn from history, looking at the culture of the Nigerian state and how we do not take things that are very important globally to be important. It just brings to thoughts that we may not be able to achieve, much. Looking at goal 4, which speaks to
yeah.
education alone, like I said, we have 10.5 million out of school children, or the data you choose to go with. Now with
Mm,
COVID, all kids are home, right? And we have
yeah.
more kids in public schools now. So add 10.5 million out of school children with the ones that were in school that cannot go to school because of COVID, with the
Mm,
ones that are probably not able to access any level of education. I'm not talking about the kids in private schools who have been, having some form of education over with the use of technology. Now you discover that if we have, I don't have the data right, but if we have 20 million children going to school, if we have 20
mm,
million children going to school, you'd bear with me that we have over 15 to 18 million children not even going to school now. And
mm,
and COVID is going to take us for a long time, say to the end of
yeah.
the year. Now that's
Mm,
1 year into the 10 years, which is supposed to be the decade of action. That's 9 years. I am not sure
mm,
we'll be able to recover that 1 year
mm.
lost, because when there was no COVID, we didn't do too much. So think about it. There's COVID now, right? The government would use this as an excuse in not meeting statutory responsibilities and duties.
Wow. So that means what we just need to do is just have to manage what we have at the moment. I think that's that's the because
Yeah,
because when I
realistically speaking, true.
but looking at it, okay, before we go into the next question, there's always this issue with budgeting, like budget, and I think
Yeah.
there was a concern that even the I think there was a new budget, I think like a consolidated budget that was released of recent, and I think there was an issue that was raised that even the budget for education was reduced. I don't know if that's correct. I think I stand to be corrected. So what do you think? Do you think this is something that should come in at this point when education is really going down?
Yes, yes. So look at when you before COVID, the federal government had a budget, right? And
Mm,
to our greatest amazement, there had to be a review of that budget. Now before COVID, now after COVID, we saw that during COVID the budget was slashed.
mm,
And fundamentally now we must understand the psychology behind budgeting in Nigeria. Now, what
mm,
the amount we see in the budget every year that is passed by the Senate and signed in by the presidency that becomes law is just a little part of the whole process. Now,
mm,
government releases to the budget is based on the fund government gets.
mm,
So if the
mm,
government doesn't have enough money, it's not going to
mm.
release. So what you can see 541 billion, for example, in the budget. Now, the government is not releasing 541 billion. The government is releasing the amount based on what it has
What
to,
to put?
um, yeah, to go into that sector. Now, fundamentally, that we have
Yeah.
a culture in Nigeria where government, year in year out, has prioritized capital projects over everything. In fact, this current government had been celebrating, 30% capital projects, in the budget. But understanding that UNESCO speaks to 26% education, if I'm right,
Yeah.
26% for educational budget, but we have
Mm,
never performed over 7%, you know,
mm.
and UNESCO put it at 26%. We've never
Wow.
performed. In fact, the last 2020 budget before it was reduced was about 6% of our budget spent on education, right? So when it comes to education and financing, or when you want to look at it for vis-a-vis the budget realities of the country, it's nothing to write home about, because government releases money based on what it gets in. Now,
Mm,
that we've not been able to, our economy just last week, or this week, the last week that just ended.
yeah.
I mean,
Mm,
our economy is hitting the rock bottom, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, recession. Yeah.
we're in a recession. Let's not frame it. We're in a recession already. Our
Mm.
performance is about 12%, double digits, and it's about 12% now. So it just shows that the government would rather prioritize on capital projects for cash flow, than to even prioritize on education post-COVID.
Wow, wow. So okay, let me just go to the because before while we were trying to also set up and interact, we there was this update that we had up to close to. I'm not really sure. That's the global that's GPE that has close to around hundreds of millions of dollars that came in when it comes to grants. That's for the educational. That's it's called the COVID Education Strategic Framework on Continuity of Learning. I know you were shocked when you heard about it. So,
Yes, I was.
yeah, yeah. But looking at it, what question do you think we should be asking right now? Because when we have COVID and normally we're looking at the working paper, it's supposed to start in March, and we're already in August, and we have not seen. I'm not sure because I know you track educational programs and projects. I don't know whether you have seen the intervention because we have dollars, close to if you are going to convert this is going to be in millions, hundreds of millions of naira. So what questions should we be asking when government is getting a grant like this? Or we should assume that the grant is still on paper, probably they have not received it. So what's your take on this?
Now, GPE. I think GPE, the Global Partnership for Education, is has been doing a whole lot investing in education, especially in developing countries, of which Nigeria falls
Yeah.
under that category of countries. But this grant is tailored for COVID-19 interventions, right? It's an accelerated funding, and
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
grant. And I think people should, or our listeners should understand what a grant is, right? A grant is funds given, to run a program, mostly developmental programs, based on any reality. Now, it's quote and unquote free money, right? That you
Mhm.
must just follow some basic principles in project management for you to be able to access that
Yeah.
grant, and all. Now, obviously, Nigeria, had requested for this fund, and I think the fund, according to the document we have, the fund, had been approved, right? So the project start date was supposed to be the 25th of May.
Yeah.
This is when July. This is 2 months after the fund has been released, and the fund is 18 million dollars, 18 million plus dollars,
Mm.
that is supposed to be for accelerated learning. When you shared this document with me today, the first thing I said to you was, I didn't know about this fund. Yeah, right. So it was an eye opener to me that we have this kind of funds, and the beneficiaries of this fund is supposed to be for 12 million learners, according
Yeah.
to the document we have.
Mm.
And their teachers also. So over 30,500 teachers and school leaders, and nearly 45% girls. This fund is supposed to be for them. Now,
Mm.
like I said to you, before we got on this call, one of the first things we're going to be doing at Connected Development is going to be sending an FOI to the Ministry of Education, the Federal Ministry of Education, tomorrow, because I know that this funding is supposed to be for 16 states in the country. We want to see their action plan. We want to see what these funds are going to be used for. We want to see the target audiences these funds are going to go to. We want to know the schools these funds are going to be released to. Because when you talk about the educational system, the educational infrastructure is something that comes to mind. Rhealyz Africa knows what you guys have been doing,
Yeah.
in terms of advocacy for dilapidated structures across the country. Now, students cannot even learn in those kind of situations. Now,
Mm.
we want to know where this fund is supposed to go to. If it's supposed to go for infrastructural development, if it's supposed to go for advanced learning, we just want to know, because currently we have limited information, about this fund. So I think our audience would have to give us some time to unravel this funding, because that's big money. And just like I was saying, now the World Bank or international partners have not done Nigeria great service in terms of bringing in the conscious civil society when it's giving our country money. Now, when international governments or when international development partners are giving Nigerian government money, there's a need for citizens to be involved in the process, because citizens are the ones who is going to track the process, who is going to follow up on this so-called interventions, that the government is making. And I think citizens are the best people to monitor and evaluate such projects. So when citizens are, and those of us who are even working, in the development space, are oblivious about this kind of income flow into the country, then I imagine what our citizens, the listeners that are listening to us today, and every other person would do in terms of following up with this cash.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Let me give you some time to rest. Let me also call on our other resource person, Mrs. Akinbo. Hello. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Hello. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I can hear you. But at the same time, these are some of the problems we're also facing when it comes
Yeah.
to this thing, which is the internet connection. I don't know if you can hear me. It's breaking. We've tried all service providers, but just keep our fingers crossed that this one would work this time around. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me ask you about teaching, because I know you have a passion for teaching, quality of teaching, quality of education. Looking at the situation we have now with COVID-19, do you think that looking at this where we are now, is there any hope? Is there any plan, or is there any what I call it? What effect do you think we've had when it comes to the level of teaching and looking at the SDGs? Because SDGs we have a target of 2030. So do you think that SDGs can be achieved looking at the level of teaching and level of education we have, and again the COVID-19 pandemic? Probably you need to turn your camera. I think you need to turn your camera.
I just noticed it myself. Okay,
Oh,
let me try and do
okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay, are we good now?
Okay. Oh, no. One more time.
I don't know. The thing on sorry,
Yeah.
my
Okay.
okay. Can Are we good now?
Yes. We can work with
Are we good
this.
now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Today
We
my
can work.
laptop decided to fold up. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Okay. Now, you asked about the Millennium Development Goals
Yes.
with relation to quality teaching that we'll
Yes.
have. Well, even before the COVID-19, we already had issues when it came to meeting our Millennium Development Goals. And Nigeria had not met the target. The target, of course, a pass mark would be from 80%, as at the last time it was evaluated, we were just about 45%.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello. We are with you. Yeah, you can go on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. I really can't say. Okay, you can hear me. All right. So we were an abysmal 45% thereabouts. So that already in itself is already proving to be a very difficult position that we are in. Now, given COVID and its implications, will we meet the development goals? No, we will not. It's not a prophecy of doom. It's just looking at what we have on ground. One of the development goals has to do with funding to the education sector. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay, all right. One of the development goals has to do with education has to do with funding for education. And right now we all know, even though the budget was revised and everything that had to do with it, education budget was taken way low. We have not reached that target of having at least 70% or 30% of our national budget going into education. So it's COVID. No, I don't think we're going to meet that goal. Now, talking about teacher quality, I know the Minister of Education has tried with the Teacher Registration Council that says if you're not a qualified teacher, you will be phased out systematically from the system. Well, we have not really seen that being implemented 100% so far. Okay, they have tried to a certain extent, and we, the public ourselves, kicked against it. I do remember this incident that happened in Kaduna State. I think it was last or 2 years ago. State government took it upon itself to revamp its education sector, and over 90% or thereabouts of teachers were let go due to the fact that according to the state government prescriptions, they didn't make the mark. We were the same people who rose up in defense of these teachers. Maybe the way they were saying that, some said they needed better treatment, they should have been retired so they could get their gratuities and all were put in place. We knew them, we the parents, and still we condoned it because of course our teachers. But you see, it's high time we put our feet on the ground when it comes to the quality of teachers. Let me give you a very vivid example using JAM. Now, JAM pegged this year's score at 160 for universities. Now, of course, the universities have their right to implement what they feel they want to use. Okay, but for universities, Nigerian universities, JAM went 160. JAM went 140 for politics and went as low as 100 for our colleges of education. What quality? Now, we have systematically done our education the service because we put it in such a way that it is those who couldn't afford or who couldn't get into the university, who couldn't get into the polytechnics, that now got into our education, our teacher training institutes, which of course are colleges of education. What do we expect at the end of the day? It's high time we played down on sentiments in Nigeria and begin to emphasize more on quality. Because your kids, my kids, are going to go to the schools that these teachers will graduate from. And they are the ones that will teach them. So when we talk about the falling standard of education in Nigeria, everyone is to blame. Everyone has a part. So back to your original question of Millennium Development Goal, no. It's not a prophecy of doom. It's just the reality that we're facing. Because even before now, quality of education had been questioned, and it still needed a lot of revamping in that sector.
Okay. Thank you very much. Because I know basically you have like what you're experiencing now in terms of connectivity, which is a general problem we have across developing countries. So looking at even learning at home, it's a lot of parents cannot afford virtual learning. A lot of parents cannot even pay for data because data is not even when it comes to connectivity, is not even reliable. And a lot of parents are agitated. They are tired because they have spent a lot. I don't want to say they are tired, but let me use the word agitated. Apologies to all parents because I'm also a parent. So how do we cope? Because for you now, I know connectivity is a challenge from your own end. We are in a developing country. We are talking about achieving educational development. We are keeping our kids at home. What do you think are some of the alternatives in case our virtual network fails, in case our internet fails, or in case oh, we are so these kids are running up and down. You keep on shouting and shouting, come back, sit down. No, I know what it takes for parents, and I know that's the reason why some parents will say, okay, let's get back to school. But again, we are also looking at the safety. What other options do you think parents can probably go for in a situation like this? What do you have any other alternative, especially when it comes to virtual learning for kids?
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
I think there's a delay. Yeah.
Okay, I do know that the Lagos State government started some where they distributed over, if I get the data correctly, they distributed over 5,000 radios to, y- yes, there's a little delay, so sorry. Okay. Um, they they distributed 5,000 or so radio sets to homes in Lagos. I do believe the Ondo State government also started a radio school, but then how effective has them? It's high time we begin to look at education outside the classroom. I'm talking about as a nation, because we do not.
Okay, I think okay. I think we might need to reconnect again. Okay, let me bring Busayo. Busayo, I think you're with us. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Bring you. So while Mrs. Akinbo try to sort out that's our connectivity. Okay, okay. So let's look at looking at the Northeast alone. We have from our own report, it said we have like 496 classrooms that have been destroyed. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You have probably might have a better data. Also, we have 1,392 classrooms that have been damaged but repairable, and a lot of schools in other parts of the country are in a very, let me say, sorry state. Do you think this is the right time for the government to help to resolve the infrastructural challenges we have while the schools are shut, instead of clamoring for reopening? Is this not the time for us to start, repairing those infrastructure? Is this not the time we start building new schools while students are at home, so that we don't have to repeat that again when we resume? Because these are always the major challenge when government is trying to say, okay, I've done well as a governor, I've done well as either a minister or as a government, I've built like 100 schools. But I think this is the time we should be building schools. This is the time that we should putting up all those infrastructures in place. So what's your take about when it comes to infrastructural development?
So quite sincerely, maybe we need people like you to become the Minister of Education in this country, or
Well,
probably the
we're all in
president.
it. We're all together into all this.
One would sit back and wonder how
Mm.
that we have leaders that do not think. Now you just hit the nail on the head. Now schools are closed. This is a time when we should have massive infrastructural, upgrades going on. Forget about COVID. Forget about COVID. People will definitely make money. In fact, I
Yeah.
should be thinking that I should be thinking that what the government is trying to do with 1,000 employing 1,000 youths or young people from every local government across the country, the 774 local government across the country. One would have thought that those people would be deployed to building schools. One would have thought that those people would be deployed to either renovating or refurbishing schools. But that is not even the problem. You know, Mr. Akinbo was talking about educational financing in Nigeria. Now, I told you that we've not hit more than the highest we've hit from 1999. The highest we've hit from 1999 is not more than 9% of education of education budgeting, not spending, budgeting. You know, now we must understand this, that for the politicians, investing in education is a bad business, and I'll give you the reason why.
Wow.
Now, if I want to run for an election, an election after 4 years, I will spend the first 4 years building roads, creating bus stops, painting the bus stops over and over again. I would rather spend money in opening roads to where the roads do not even bring any economic value into the state, you know, because when I want to run in the next 4 years, I need to come back to you and say that, look at the roads I've built for you. You need something to see, right? If I want to invest in education in 4 years, my 4 years budget, total budget, including recurrent expenditure, capital expenditure, if I invest it into education, you would not see any change immediately, because it's investing in education. It takes a long time, you know. And I always say to guys, I said, okay, let's count this. Let's count this, boss. See, it takes a child 6 years in primary school, another 6 years in the in secondary school. That's 12 years. Another 4 years in the university. That's 16 years. Plus or minus, it will take you 20 years to see the value of investing in education for 1 year.
Wow.
Now, that 20 years, education investment must be continuous. You can't break it in between, because if you break it, you lost the gains you've made, right? Now, so realistically, a politician is not thinking about investing in education. But this is the truth. Build any kind of infrastructure you want to build in this life. Go ahead and build it. If you don't develop humans, the human capacity of young people in the system, they would either vandalize those properties, or they would sell those properties, or they would not know the value of those properties. We have seen people dig holes in roads. We have seen people pull down government infrastructure. Now, when you don't train them and you let them become touts, anything can happen.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, understanding also that there is a psychic about education in this country. So I give you another example. When I was growing up, there were Brussies on my streets that went to the university. They graduated from the university. I was probably in secondary school.
Yeah.
I saw that they stayed at home the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year. They didn't have jobs. Now I am in the secondary school. I'm about to get into the university. And these guys that have gone through the university have graduated for 5 years without job. What are you going to tell me about the value of education, you know, that will convince me to want to invest my time going to school? You know, so fundamentally, there's a psychological part of this, you know, that makes it difficult for Nigerians, young people, old people, politicians alike, to see the need to invest in education. Because over time, you've seen that education doesn't seem to have value, right? Now, imagine if we spent the 4 years or 5 years we spent in the university, we spent that time learning a trade. Would have become professionals in the trade. Any trade you learn for 4 years back to back, you are supposed to be a professional. Be it welding, be it carpentry, you're supposed to be a professional. So why do you spend money going to school when you graduate from school, you don't have any? Our educational curriculums are backward. There's no value. When I was in the university, Adekunle Ajasin University, because I know we have a whole lot of Ondo folks from Ondo listening to us. When I studied history and international studies in Adekunle Ajasin University, for the 4 years I spent in that school, we were calling ourselves diplomats. For the 4 years we spent in that school, we don't know anything about diplomacy. I mean, I graduated in 2012. I had to go for another master's, divert into the place where I am now, which is the development sector, where I am finding relevance, right? How many people could afford going for a master's degree after their first degrees? These are fundamental truths that we must speak to ourselves, you know. So when it even comes to the side of the government or the politicians, they don't think about these things. Now, so you want to build schools, go ahead and build it. What is the quality of the education we're getting from those schools? And that was the question Mr. Akinbo, you know, was asking. Look at the teachers we have. Look at the payments. Look, there's a state in Nigeria that owed basic education teachers, for 1 year. They didn't pay their salaries for 1 year. Now, how can you get a graduate like me or my friends who have graduated to go teach in the schools where government is going to owe me for 1 year? The government would rather pay a contractor to build roads than to pay a teacher who is teaching in the school. Now, you want value you want graduates to go back to teach in the basic education level, and you're not ready to pay them. If you begin to, I tell you the truth, if you begin to pay teachers how you would pay politicians, would have more people going into the schools, to teach. Would have lawyers go take teaching roles in schools, and they will do good. You'll have people who have doctorate degrees go back to the basic education to teach, because that's the foundation of education. When people meet it at that point of education, it's going to be difficult to have them meet up, probably when they get into the university. The reason why some of us can interact like this is because we had quite basic, education when we were growing up. I mean, we had that education that could help us, speak to people, look ourselves in the eyes, and talk. There are kids today who cannot speak, not because they're not intelligent, but because of the kind of education they got, from basic. In fact, we have first-class students today that cannot express themselves. Their English were battered when they were in the basic education cadre.
Yeah. Well, well, I think you really said a lot, and probably what we'll do is that we still find time to look at the quality of education, because some of these things, because if you miss it at the level when it comes to the foundation, we are going to miss it no matter what we are talking about, either school resumption or whatsoever. Let school resume tomorrow, let school resume today. If we miss the foundation, we are not going nowhere, and that's just the truth. We need to go about that. But let me just go looking at the next question. So, looking at global trend and everything, we have private schools involved in virtual learning, and we also have the situation whereby a lot of private schools are the ones involved. But we are not considering people in rural communities. For Rhealyz Africa, we have communities, we have places like Monkey Village in Lagos, we have places like Shasha, even in Oyo State, we have places like even Oda in Ondo State, where we have kids. These are the same Nigerians. And they are there, they are just whiling away the time because they don't have access to some of these virtual facilities. They are not part of private schools or private institutions. So what do you think? Is there like a gap? Is there what concerned, or let me say, how concerned are you when you're looking at this gap that we have between the private schools and public schools in disadvantaged communities? People in cities, they still have access to radio. Mrs. Akinbo mentioned that we have Lagos State providing radio set, which is a very good thing. But we're looking at Nigeria, where we have people in rural communities whereby you have to go on bike for like 1 hour before you get there. So what's the hope? What's the future for children like that? For kids like that?
So we pledge that we're going to say the truth today and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah. Quite sincerely, there's no hope. Quite sincerely, there's no hope. I'm sorry. You may feel totally different, but for me, there's no hope because there are no quick fixes. What we did, see how you lay your bed is how you're going to sleep on it. Before COVID-19, we have missed it totally in our education. Before COVID-19, we have totally missed it. Now, this is an emergency, for God's sake. We can't get it right in an emergency, probably until the emergency is over and we go back to the thinking box, or we begin to think in the emergency to fix the challenge after the emergency. But for now, there's nothing we can see. Anything we can do, provide 10,000 radios, provide 12 million radios. It cannot fit the educational demands of people. It can't fit the educational demands. Now, these are kids that have learned in classrooms all their lives. That's the ones that have access to go to school. Now, there's a swift change, and you expect them to change immediately? No. Even as an adult, I find it difficult taking online courses as an adult. I find it difficult taking online courses. Now, you're saying to a child who has known the four walls of his classroom all his life, to have that switch immediately. It's not possible. It's going to take a while. Even the private schools are not finding it easy. Now, quite unfortunately, we have people that are disadvantaged and they are in hard to reach communities that do not have radio. In fact, if they have radios, some of them cannot even afford to buy battery for those radios. Now, they don't even have electricity. So forget about what the government is saying, that they are teaching children on TV and all those things. And imagine you have 4 children. One is in primary 6, another one is in primary 3, another one is in primary 2. Everybody will sit down at the TV and watch the same thing, the same time. So how many hours do you want those kids to sit on the TV? Not leave all those things. Those things are quick fixes. It can never fix the situation. Sincerely, it can never fix the situation. Now, this is time for us to go back into our critical point, to begin to think what we can do anew, to change the current situations or the current reality. It's a hard job, and it's going to take a whole lot of political will. Quite unfortunately, in Ondo State, for example, nobody's thinking about this. The government is thinking about a re-election. It's quite sad. In Nigeria, nobody's thinking about this. We're probably looking at NDDC, the drama in NDDC, and we're probably looking at the drama in EFCC. Because Nigerians our attention spans are very little attention span. Go on Twitter. Education is not trending. NDDC is trending. Nobody's concerned. Nobody's concerned. You understand? I mean, those of us who are concerned are people that are faced with these realities every day. And quite sincerely, those realities do not hit us as hard as it hits those people in the marginalized communities. All my nieces and nephews are learning virtually. They go to private schools. They don't go to public schools. But those people that are in hard to reach communities, there's no hope. Most of them have gone back to farming, quite sincerely, because survival, they need to survive first. Their parents need to survive first. Their parents aren't even thinking about education. Now, this is where everybody has to come to the tough and say, enough is enough. We have to fix education once and for all. We have to do the hard job to fix education once and for all. States like Ondo State, for example, we have opportunities now. The campaigns are going to be starting. Can we get people to begin to ask the real questions to those people who want to run for offices? What are your plans on education, for example? Can we have these people who want to run for offices speak to education in Ondo State? Speak to education in Edo State. Can we have the House of Representatives, the guys in the Senate, the guys in the House of Assembly, speak to the cogent issues around education? Let's look at education financing. Now, the budget cannot fit education. How can we strategize and strategically look at ways we can get educational bonds, for example, which are flying everywhere in the world? How can we get private investors to support the educational system or invest in the educational system? How can we probably see how to get a private company to put its CSR into training of teachers and retraining of teachers? I mean, those are critical things we should begin to look at now. But unfortunately, nobody's thinking, and we're all at peace, because probably it doesn't affect us directly.
Well, okay, thank you. Well, I know a lot of matters are really coming up because you're talking about engaging private owners, corporate organizations, and because I always say this, that if I have the opportunity to be in power, there's no company that will exist in my own domain that will not invest in development projects. If you cannot invest in development project, get out of my domain, because that's the reality. Because it's so unfortunate that we have corporate organizations that know how to find their way around things, whereby the people that are suffering will know how much people are spending, paying to some of these corporate organizations. We spend a lot of money and we are not getting what we need. And it's a really a bad state, but we know that gradually we'll get over it. And we need to still keep on talking about the national roundtable, whereby we're going to talk about issues like this and forge ahead. But looking at school reopening, because that's been a major concern, a lot of people are talking about opening of schools and everything. And you are a stakeholder when it comes to that. I know you have taken time to look at what the Ministry of Education rolled out. It's called the Safe School Reopening Guidelines. Do you think some stakeholders were left out? Because I feel that when it comes to school reopening, there are a lot of things that needs to be done. A lot of stakeholders are needed to be contacted or consulted. Do you think that some stakeholders are still left out when it comes to reopening of schools, looking at the guidelines we've read?
Yeah, true. I mean, so you must, we must understand how government works in Nigeria. Now,
Mm,
and I also say, corruption thrives in opacity. Corruption
mm.
thrives in opacity.
Wow.
Now, when the government wants to steal, the government puts everybody in the dark, right? Right. So they
Mm,
selectively bring people to the table. You understand? They bring the yes men to the table because they know that if they bring Realize Africa to the table, Realize Africa is going to say to them, look at these other realities. They
yeah,
will
yeah.
not bring you to the table. They will
Mm,
bring the yes men to the table. And when they even want to bring guys that are in the civil society, they bring the guys that are in the civil society that's their sponsor, to the
mm,
table, and those guys are yes men. So the
mm,
government doesn't like to be engaged. You
mm,
understand? And it's still part of the reasons why citizens do not trust government till tomorrow. Now, do
mm,
you know that there are some people in this country that still believe COVID-19 doesn't exist? I
mm,
don't
yeah,
blame
yeah.
them. I don't
Mm.
blame them. They do not
Pandemic.
trust, they do not trust the government enough to believe anything the government says. Now, so
Mm,
people would literally walk in distrust when government says schools should reopen. And quite
mm,
sincerely, I think that schools shouldn't reopen. I mean, and this is my opinion. You can have your your different opinion, but
mm,
because and the reason is because Nigeria never gets anything right. In fact, we get things wrong effortlessly. No
mm,
matter the amount of planning we put in, we never get it right. Now, give me one critical example of one thing Nigeria as a country has been able to handle and we got it right from the beginning to the end. I
mm,
cannot trust my child in the hands of the Nigerian government. In all
mm,
sincerity, I can't do that. I can't do that. Now, if you have now look at the school feeding program, for example. The only thing we saw from the school feeding programs were photo ops of government officials going into school pretending to eat with school children. That was the last time we heard about the school feeding program. Now, this same government went into people's houses to feed people during a lockdown when schools, were not operational. Now, billions, were spent on that. I do not
mm,
trust the government to handle something as small as feeding school children in school. Why would I trust the government to handle the health of children
mm,
when they go to school? I believe that if that happens, man, COVID-19 cases will just soar higher because you do not
mm,
know where your teachers are coming from. You do not know
mm,
what the teachers are exposed to. You do not know
mm,
what these children. The easiest way to spread a pandemic. Look at it. If a child in a class has chicken pox, most
mm.
likely 2, 3, 4 children
Yeah,
are going to have chicken pox, before
yeah.
the end of the week. You
Mm,
understand? Now, we don't have the culture of getting things right. Don't put
mm,
those children at risk. Let them stay at their houses. If we
mm,
cannot find a way to get education across to them in their houses, then I think we're not ready as a country to do that. We do not
mm,
have, in more civilized countries, we do not have people talk about the fact that children needs to go back to school because children are
mm.
learning. Learning
Yeah.
never stops.
Mm,
Even in our universities, learning even stopped before COVID. ASU was on
mm,
strike before COVID.
mm,
So what are we talking about? You
mm,
understand? So without missing words, Nigeria has not proven to me personally that we can get things right. It would not start with an emergency. It would not
mm.
start with an emergency. I mean, so with or without stakeholders brought to the table, if I am on that table, I'm going to say this to the minister in his eyes and tell him we have never gotten anything right, and I'm not sure we're going to start, with an emergency, especially when it has to deal with children.
Mm. Well, you said it all because when you're looking at the issue of COVID-19, it's something that it spreads fast. You're looking at representatives of families clustered together, and it's like you are sending, like just like you are sending termites from one bag to the other to different
The other
houses. So
so,
it's
so
like
I just
okay.
I just remembered something now. Now
Mm,
looking at the UNESCO's approved number of children, per class, per teacher. I think it's between 23 to 26, 23 to
mm,
26 children
mm,
per class. You know these things now. We have seen classes where they have 150 children. You understand? What kind of physical distancing do you no, we're not ready. We're not ready. We're not ready,
Or,
yeah.
if- or even looking at it, even let's assume we even have classes. One of those who are even under the tree in this weather, because this is the rainy season. I don't really know what happens across the country, but where I'm where I know some locations in Nigeria there's rain. So how even are they going to even cope? Looking at this, and it has been, let me say, from science, or where though I stand to be corrected, during rainy season or humid weather condition, it spreads faster. There's this increase in spread. So what are we doing? So I think you really said it all. But looking at that, because I know you are so passionate. We are all passionate about the educational sector. Let's assume you are given 1 month to become the Minister of Education in Nigeria, and some of these issues are on your table. What are you going to do within 1 month when it comes to issues of this pandemic and education? What do you think you are going to do? Let's just be frank, because you said you're going to say the truth and nothing but the truth.
See, there's nothing that can be done within 1 month.
But you have
Sincerely, there's nothing.
okay.
There's
Okay,
nothing.
what steps?
No, no,
What
no,
steps?
yeah.
Okay, let's start. Okay, what's your startup step? Yeah. What are you going to
Now,
start
now,
with?
now, 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 sincerely,
Hmm.
if I'm the Minister of Education for 1 month, I will shut down every school in the country for 1 month.
Wow.
I'll shut down every school in the country for 1 month, because you have to look at the curriculum. You have to look at the learning outcomes. Are
Hmm.
children actually learning when they go to school?
Hmm.
Forget about infrastructure. Leave infrastructure. What is our curriculum speaking to? I would shut down the system first for the first 1 month, and the only thing we're going to be doing for that 1 month is ideating. Probably throw up a challenge to every Nigerian to bring up solutions, that would fix the educational system.
Hmm.
Because after that 1 month, then I would also try to ensure that the Minister of Education.
Okay, I think we lost him. I think he will still come back. Okay, okay, okay. We'll still have him back.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Can you can you hear
Okay,
me?
yes, yes, you
Yeah,
can
great,
come.
great.
Yeah, okay.
Now, I would ensure that the office of the Minister of Finance is not a political appointment. I would
Hmm.
ensure that person who holds that office is not even paid by the government, but it's going to be paid by international donors, international partners, and the person must have qualifications, to revamp, an education on a national scale. You
Hmm.
understand? Now, if we can be able to achieve that within 1 month and give the person deliverables and let every Nigerian citizen rate that person, according to the person's work, monthly, then I think I'd have been able to set the precedent, in that space.
Okay. 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 Thank you. But looking at it now, we're talking about resumption. Let's get to this part. What do you expect that we should have for you to approve that schools, or let me say our children, should start resuming schools? What do you think that we should? What are your expectations, and how do you think that What are some of the measures you think that can be put in place for resumption? What's your take on that?
Now, if we cannot, any school that cannot meet the NCDC guidelines shouldn't reopen.
Okay.
Any school that cannot meet the NCDC, I mean, there's nothing else we want to say. The NCDC is globally approved. It's a globally approved standard of handling COVID. If your school does not meet into that reality, please close the school. Don't open that school until it
Hmm.
meets the NCDC standard, and it must be monitored. The schools must be decontaminated after every 1 hour. After every 1 hour, it must be
Hmm.
decontaminated. Children
Hmm.
must ensure that they wash their hands at every given opportunity. There should
Hmm.
be hand sanitizers everywhere. There should be physical distancing. You see, we cannot, no school in this country. I'm not even sure the guys in the private schools can even achieve that standard.
Because even water, how do we achieve water? How do we go? Because these are issues that, because I know, because of okay, I think we'll still have time to talk more about these integrities. But looking at WASC, that's WAEC exam. What's your take on it?
Yeah.
Because now there's a call that we should start sending out as a final year student, that's the final year student to school. What's your take on that? Because ASU, I read a report this morning. ASU is saying that we should just end up everything for now, suspend everything till 2021. And there's also a call that it's better we lose a year than to lose a life. So what's your take on the issue of WAEC? Because it looks as if there's no correlation between the state and the federal government. So what's your take on that as we round up?
Yeah, so quite sincerely, I think we should lose a year. I think we should. It may not
Mm,
be a popular opinion, but I think we should lose a year. Now, the problem is what we do with that year we are losing, because we are
yeah,
not learning any lessons. We're not learning any
yeah.
lessons. Even the handling of COVID is showing that we're not learning any lessons. Now, and
Mm,
in Nigeria, history always repeats itself. It's quite unfortunate,
mm,
but history
mm,
always repeats itself. I think we should lose a year, not because of what Asu said. I don't reckon with what Asu said, not because of what Asu said, but because of the fact that we're in an emergency and we've not managed anything well. I'm not sure we're
mm,
going to manage this well. What's the need for you to open up schools and children go write exams and there is a
yeah.
breakout of COVID? And I mean,
Mm,
we're losing kids. It doesn't make
mm,
sense to me. I think we should lose 1 year, but in that 1 year, we should be able to re-strategize and have our
mm.
education, focus at the places we want it to be.
Okay, okay, that's good. So, what's your last take? Because of our time, I think it's unfortunate that we're not able to get Mrs. Akinbo on board. I know this is a part of some of these challenges we have. So, what's your last take? What's your own suggestion? What do you think we can do when it comes to what's the way forward? Because I know we will still look at this in subsequent editions. So, what's the way forward from your own end?
Quite sincerely, I would speak to the citizens, Nigerians, you and I. Now, we belong to the civil society organizations. There's a larger civil society. Now, that
Mm,
civil society is for every individual who is not in the military, number one, who is not in law enforcement, the larger civil society of citizens, everyday citizens. See, there is no system that got fixed by government alone. Every
mm,
system that is functional today took the deliberate effort of its citizens engaging with government. We must see ourselves as stakeholders. See, election, what we call election doesn't start and end on the day of election. It's a
yeah.
continuum, right? So
Mm,
citizens must hold their governments to account. That's why I was saying in Ondo State, for example, citizens come up with citizen scorecard that you can grade elected officials with. Now, if they don't meet up to that scorecard, you can impeach them, you can take them out, you can recall them. Don't wait for 4 years electoral cycle where you send some people home. No, it's not going to fix the system. Citizens must wake up. We must fold our sleeves. It's a hard, tough job. We cannot just sit down and rant on social media, rant on Twitter. We cannot just sit down and talk about these issues. We all must take active participation in it, because the truth of the matter is, those of the kids, looking at the segregation we have in the country, which is nobody's fault, by the way. I mean, I'm talking about private citizens.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Send your child to the best schools ever. You see those Kamaru on the streets, those I don't apologize anybody who bears alade, those alades on the streets that have not gone to school. They're going to become a thorn in our flesh in the next 20 years. They're going to become terrible political talks. They're going to be more sophisticated. They're going to hunt us down. They're going to hunt our kids down because we didn't give them the opportunity to go to school, to learn, to be able to start up a life on their own. Now, you think it's a joke. Look at Nigeria in the next 20 years and see the amount. If we don't send 10.5 million out of school children back to school, look at the amount of touts, thugs, hoodlums, terrorists we're going to have on the street. I hope that my children will be safe in this country. I hope that my children will be able to mix up with other children and still feel safe, by the
Mm.
actions I'm taking today to ensure that children go to school, because it's a fundamental, basic human right for every child to go to school. It's a fundamental human right for every child to go to school. And if children are not going to school, we shouldn't sleep.
Wow, that's good. But I know we're running on. Let me quickly ask you this, because I know you also work on accountability. What can
Yeah.
citizens do? Because I know people are watching this and they want to know. A lot of people, there's a difference between when you are angry and you are not doing anything. We are angry. What can we do? Education is down. Education, we don't even know we don't know the future. We don't know where we are going to. Just like what one of these musicians said the boat of Nigeria is on the sea. the ocean tides, so we don't even know where we're going to. So what can we do? Apart from ranting, apart from talking, what can we do as citizens? Because I know there's a citizen responsibility, like what citizens can. What can we do to help out, and what could be our own contribution? What do you think we can do?
Now, citizens, first of all, citizens should stop looking at Buhari. We must stop looking at Buhari. Buhari is not the biggest problem. Your councillor is your biggest problem. Your local government chairman is your biggest problem. Your councillor is a legislative member in the local government administration level. Now look at your councillor, your ward councillor. Sit him down, call a community forum, sit him down and ask him, what is the local government's plan for education? You have your local government educational secretaries. Those are the people you should engage with. Now, NFIU, with the NFIU Act, the federal government gives money to local governments directly. So local government have massive funds now. Citizens must organize as communities and speak to local government chairmen. And what are you saying to them? What are your plans for education in our local government? Actually, basic education is supposed to be the exclusive preserve of the local government educational authorities, the local government system. Now, so citizens must organize first, organize, not just one person. Citizens must organize. If your children go to private schools or not, you must organize at your level of your council ward and begin to engage your councillors, engage your local government chairman, engage your House of Assembly representatives because they are representing you in the House of Assembly. Engage your state governments, engage your state governors. That's why we're saying come up with a citizens manifesto and give it to anybody who wants to run for office, and let the person sign a pact on national TV, on your state TV, saying, if I fail to abide by this citizens manifesto, I should be impeached from office. Put it, make it in the public domain. Bring journalists together. Journalists will come, and let's begin to monitor the people we vote for to represent us. We pay their salaries, for God's sake. Your taxes and my taxes are what they use to survive. We pay their salaries. We should be able to call them home, to tell them to give an account of what they've been able to do. If they have not done anything, let us impeach them. Let us recall House of Assembly members. Let us send local government, chairman packing. Now, this sounds easy, but it is a hard job. Citizens must fold their sleeves to do this hard job. There's no Messiah coming anywhere. In 2015, we thought a Messiah was coming. The Messiah has become another thing, so forget it. There's no Messiah coming anywhere. We must be able to take up responsibility and do the hard job of holding our governments to account. We must do the hard job of holding our governments to account. Nobody's going to do this for us. We have to do it for ourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Busayo. You said it. Nobody is going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves, and we have to start from the grassroots. Everything about development has to do with the bottom-up approach. We missed it, starting from the top. We've forgotten that everybody started from the background. Everybody started from the grassroots. Everybody started from the community. So we need to work together to be able to hold our government accountable, hold our elected leaders from the grassroots accountable. So thank you very much, Busayo. I'm very, very happy to really have you. And we hope that we'll still have more time to look at citizens' engagement, in subsequent editions, and so that we'll be able to work and achieve all we need. So for those who are watching, you need to be part of this move. Let's not just keep quiet. Let's not rant on Twitter alone. Let's take action from our background. So thank you very much, Busayo. I appreciate you, and we believe that we'll still get in touch.
Thanks for having me.
So make sure you make yourself available for subsequent editions, so that we'll be able to look at how we can achieve things, and so that we can let people know that education matters in anything in life. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. So on behalf of Rhealyz Africa, I'm very, very happy to have you. We want to say that it's been a wonderful time, for you to have followed us, because I know it's not that easy. Your data, your time, and everything. So make sure you are part of us. Follow us on at Do It Right RGN on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want to be part of our project, you want to be part of any of the projects we are doing, just go to www.rgnconnect. Be scrolling on the screen. You just check it on the screen. RGN Connect on Facebook. Sorry, on the website rgnconnect.com/volunteer. So this will really help us a lot. So thank you very much, Busayo. All those who want to appreciate all those who have been part of this. I know you've been sending a lot of messages, and we'll try to see how we can get everything up. I want to thank also Lola down for also helping behind, and thank you so much. We want to appreciate even all the team that have been working behind the scenes to ensure that we have this program. Mrs. Omolola Akinbo, we know that one of these days we still want to bring you on board so that you're going to share your own experience. I know it's about the connectivity, but we know in Nigeria, in Africa, in developing countries, we are going to overcome the internet issue so that we're going to communicate and be part of the global village. So once again, my name is Rhealyz Emmanuel Adeshida, team leader, program director of Rhealyz Africa. I want to say this: be part of Rhealyz, be part of change. Let's work together. Feel free to write to us and engage us and volunteer. Make sure you get the information on the screen so that we can be able to work effectively. But sincerely from us, we believe that until the schools are safe, until everybody we have access to basic water facilities, we have good coordination, we have good spacing, we have good monitoring, and we also have a dive when it comes to COVID-19 pandemic, that's in terms of the cases, are not ready to resume because we believe that our children are more precious, they are vital to us, and we cannot allow them to just go to schools and enter into a danger that we might not be able to repair. So, once again, thank you very much. God bless you. See you again. We're going to come up towards the end of the month. Watch out for us. And even first week in August, we'll be talking about more than our scars on sexual and gender based violence. We'll be talking about issues of female genital mutilation, rape, when it comes to human rights and gender equality. These are some of the things we are going to be engaging with us. So feel free to volunteer with us. We want you to be part of it. Thank you very much. God bless you. See you again towards the end of the month. Bye.